Hello and welcome to Teslanomics Live, everyone. I'm your host, Ben Sullins. This is a live show where we break down the latest news from Tesla from the week that has passed. We do it live because, well, things change rapidly here, and I don't want to miss any big stuff that comes out. So, if you are not on the email list and you want to join in the conversation, you need to go get on it at teslanomics.co/join. That's where I will send out the invite to join me on Crowdcast. Crowdcast is more of an intimate community. It's still free to join and all that. There's really nothing, you don't have to pay for anything or buy anything, just a different place that we do it. And it's more for the folks that are really into this and want to join the community, not just kind of browse and be in view-only mode. So if you're on YouTube, I won't be paying attention to any of the comments or any of that. So, if you have questions, go hop over to Crowdcast. That's my message to you. And I send those out usually kind of Sunday afternoon or Monday morning. Lately, I've been sending the wrong link, but typically you get a link there, you hop in, and then you're registered. And I do limit it to a certain number of people because otherwise it just gets completely out of hand and the questions and all that don't really make sense. So also, if you're watching this after the fact and don't want to hear me blab about this or a bunch of the other stuff, I'll put timestamps with all the different stories in a pinned comment down below so you can go search for that and then just find the specific story that you're interested in. And the first story that we're going to start out with today has to do with the Model 3 delay. So let me bring that up on the screen for you and we can kind of talk through some of the stuff here. So the Tesla just had an earnings call, and we'll go over a lot about that in detail here, but there were some interesting tea leaves out of there. In addition to that, a lot of folks, myself included, just recently received an update, an email saying that our Model 3 delivery is delayed. Now, I already have my first Model 3, but my second one, was the one they were talking about. Now, for most people, they delayed it over to late 2018 for the standard battery. And I'm going to talk about my thoughts on that a little bit later, but let me just go through the basics of it here. So late 2018 for the standard battery, that's pretty much everywhere. All-wheel drive in Canada is coming out mid-2018 for some reason, so they're actually getting bumped up, and maybe that's to do with bringing in the higher profit, the more revenue up front, and I think I have an article from Electrek on that as well. So really interesting that they're expanding into Canada sooner than originally planned. And Elon on the earnings call alluded to a little bit of this as the modules in the production line two of them specifically were problematic. And that, so 2 of the 4 were giving them, kind of creating a bottleneck, and that is actually where why we've seen delays. And he said it was a bit of complacency, that they thought they were really good at making batteries for cars, and it turns out that because of whatever the circumstances are with the Model 3, that posed many more challenges than they had anticipated. Now they have a company in Germany that has actually built a completely automated system that will solve this. However, as you may have just guessed, the problem is that this stuff is in Germany, and I have an article for that explaining that as well. So the battery assembly and all these things that were the issue, they've figured out. They believe that they figured out, but they need to disassemble them and then bring them over to the United States, reassemble them, and hope there aren't any problems. And as Elon, there's a quote here on this, Elon said on the earnings call, that's got to be disassembled, brought over to the Gigafactory and reassembled, and then brought into operation at the Gigafactory. So, there's definitely some opportunity for problems to arise there. But there you have it. So this is kind of what's going on. It has been delayed, pushed back. I'm sure a lot of you with reservations know that. And it's kind of an interesting story, but one that is continuing to develop. So as more comes out, we'll continue to cover this story. Now, there are some other pieces on the earnings call that Elon alluded to about this. One in particular was that they're still on track for 2,000 to 2,500 cars per week by the end of March. Now, to me, that was interesting because they're softening it, right? It was 2,500. Now it's 2,000 to 2,500. Okay, so we're, what's next? 1,500 to 2,000, and then 1,000. I mean, so I'm not sure if they're just kind of, speaking generally, not being specific, which doesn't sound like Elon. But that was one little tidbit I picked up on, was that, there may be even further delays, which would be pretty bad. Now, the thing about that is that they're still confident in the 2,000, 2,500 by end of March, and that depending on these new systems, that these automated systems, how they get installed and how quickly and successfully they do on that, that may affect their 5,000 per week target, which they are now reporting at the end of Q2. So that'll be interesting, because that could, once they get that going, that fixes the bottleneck, and that really changes the whole delivery ramp. And so I think that that these are things that we're going to hear more of, and this story is going to continue to develop. In the meantime, thousands of people are getting their Model 3s, and so, it's happening. And as the delivery S-curve, or the delivery ramp, suggests, it's very slow in the beginning, and then it takes off and goes linear, and then it eventually kind of caps out. So we'll see what is left of this story. It sounds like the next big thing that we'll be waiting on is whether or not that machinery gets installed correctly. I don't anticipate we'll hear any of that until the Q2 earnings call, if then. I'm sure somebody will be pressing them on that. So there you have that. That is the major story here. It's a bummer. I'm still really hopeful that 2018 is going to be a major year for Tesla, especially with the Model 3. The original estimate that I had before is still pretty much stands. If you guys saw my video where I did the S-curve calculus on it, it still matches, because they haven't changed guidance yet, and so I think that this isn't really that big of a news story, because we already knew this, but now it's actually hitting home for people because they're seeing it change. Now, I did actually just meet somebody. I'll give you one little extra tidbit, and this is it's someone that told me that this worked for them, and so your mileage may vary, right? Don't quote me on this, but they said that they actually bought a used Model S, and that jumped their place in line. And the Tesla sales rep told them it would, but what happened was they bought their used Model S, and then their delivery estimate on the Tesla website changed to much sooner than it was before. And now they're kind of in a conundrum, because they bought the Model S thinking like, all right, well, we'll just get a Model S. It's a better car overall, and it's relatively the same price as they were going to pay. So whatever, they're just going to do it. They want to own a Tesla now. And so, but now that they can get their Model 3 sooner, they're kind of stuck in this position. So that's something to consider out there, is that, again, you can talk to a sales rep and ask and all that, but that could be a way to get a Model 3 a bit sooner, because, of course, current Tesla owners get it faster. So there you go. So that's kind of the main story here on the Model 3 delay. I'm curious what you guys think. If you are in this boat, are you pissed? Are you disappointed? Are you kind of whatever and not really too upset? Leave me a comment down below, especially if you're watching this after the fact. So that's the main story today. The next one is kind of a fun one, and this was insane. This was the Roadster that went to Mars, or that's on its way to Mars. I believe it's not going to actually make it to Mars because they missed the orbit a little bit. But in any event, if you guys didn't watch the Falcon Heavy launch, you got to go do that. It's pretty incredible. You can see it, on YouTube or all kinds of different websites. And I would just go, to a few seconds, maybe 15, 20 seconds before the actual launch and check it out. I mean, and then of course these photos here are just absolutely mind-blowing. That's actually Zoom, and that's a different one. But there you go, the Falcon Heavy with the three rockets, and then the two coming down at the same time, and the photos of the Roadster in space. That's absolutely insane. So super cool. Definitely go check that out if you guys didn't. I'm sure you guys saw something that was all over the news. So the reason I love this, and this is why I really love Tesla, is because they're one of the few companies that are really pushing the boundaries of technology. I know that there are some companies out there making really fantastic ways to take selfies and share those with people. But, you know, on the important side of what technology is doing for humanity, these guys are at the forefront. SpaceX and Tesla are really doing stuff that no one else is, and so it's really fascinating. Or I shouldn't say there are other companies doing it, but they seem to be kind of winning at it and really, you know, giving all of us hope. I mean, as a young kid, I wanted to be an astronaut, and I couldn't even imagine if I saw stuff like this, I would be cemented that that was my future. And so I just really am hopeful for that. This inspires so many other people to kind of dig into space and follow that pursuit, because it's so exciting, and I'm just a big geek. So there you have it. Okay, now on to the earnings call highlights. And my friend Ryan McCaffrey, who has a podcast here called Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast, I absolutely recommend this. It's a great show, but he also does a fantastic job going through the earnings call and actually playing back all of the little bits from Elon and JP and everyone else. So I'll just kind of run through these quickly, some things that popped out to me. And I'll put a link to his podcast in the actual show notes for today's video. First is they pretty much confirmed that there will not be 2170 cells in the Model S and X, that they're going to stick with the 18650. If you have no clue what that means, don't worry. It just means that the Tesla Model 3 has a newer battery technology, and everyone was kind of saying, hey, how come you're not going to put that in the S and X? It turns out that they would need to reconfigure the entire supply chain, and the manufacturing line would need to be updated, which means they would have to stop production on pretty much their only solid revenue stream at this point. So it didn't sound, you know, from Elon and JB talking about it, it did not sound like this was something that they're going to do. And that leads me into the speculation we've had about a refresh and potentially bigger, newer battery tech for the S and X. I think we're all very hopeful that we'll see 130 kilowatt hour battery with 400 miles of range and stuff like that. There's been a lot of chatter about it. But this really puts that into question for me, whether or not we will see a bigger battery in these cars until much further down the road. A lot of people, I think, are speculating that we'll see it this year. And I just don't know. I mean, they really made it sound like it's almost impossible to do this. So they you know, don't want to. And so that's a big question. Now, whether or not we see an interior refresh, I could definitely see that. The Model S specifically has some interior elements that I think could be updated. I think the exterior is still gorgeous and still stands the test of time. Maybe slight tweaks here and there, but overall, I think it's a fantastic vehicle. So I wouldn't really change much on the outside. I don't see them, you know, based on Elon and JB's comments on the earnings call, I don't see them changing the battery technology anytime soon. But, you know, maybe the interior bits, you know, some of the styling with some of the bezels around the screen and stuff like that could change. So I don't know if the X really would get any of that. Maybe, like, again, some very minor things. So yeah, that really stood out to me as something, because I know a lot of us are real hopeful for that. But they made it sound like it's definitely not a done deal, and if anything, it's leaning towards not happening for the foreseeable future. All right, next was the coast-to-coast road trip that Elon touched on. If you guys don't recall, he I forget when he did this. It was an interview at TED Talk, I think, where they asked him about this, and he said that, you know, a Tesla Model 3 should be able to go from a parking lot in Los Angeles to a parking lot in New York City without a person touching the wheel at all. And he said he could do it in November to December of last year. It's Elon time, so, you know, we'll put that at maybe late this year. And so he basically, you know, addressed it and said, yeah, they could have done it, but they would have had to manually code a lot of the routes and things and deal with that. So it wouldn't have been something that was actually commercially viable. It would have just been kind of a for show. And that didn't make sense. That'd be kind of a waste of resources. And also that everything is going into the production of the Model 3. And so they didn't really, they kind of diverted all resources towards this. So, yeah, you know, he said we may see it, and it will be available to customers at some point. Yeah, we'll see. Very curious if and when that comes to market. I think it'd be fascinating, but again, it's actually not something I really care about that much. It's kind of low on the list. Next, he talked about Model Y, and if you're unfamiliar, Model Y is the cheaper version of the Model X, is a way to think of it. It's kind of like what the Model 3 is to the Model S, right? It's like a watered down version of the Model X. And if you've been in a Model X, you know there's a lot to water down. You could simplify that car, 100 times, and it would still be a beautiful, amazing, fantastic vehicle. So the Model Y is that. It's the cheaper version of the crossover SUV. And they look at this as a catalyst that will get them to 1 million cars per year, which I think the original timeline was 2020 for that. There's just no way they're going to hit that. I'm just going to say it's not going to happen. But, they will get there. It'll just be longer than that, maybe 2025 or something. The news was that Elon did address that they are going to make some capital investments later this year, which means, probably a factory, lots of equipment for the factory, things like that. And that I think Deepak mentioned, the CFO mentioned that they could be profitable late in Q3 of this year, but what they're more likely going to do is take all that money and invest it into the Model Y, which makes a lot of sense because the crossover SUV market is huge and they stand to make a ginormous splash. So Model Y is coming. I hope that we get to see an unveiling, maybe take reservations this year. I, of course, will be putting one down and hope to go to the event and share that experience with you guys. Now, there were some interesting notes. These don't kind of fall under a single theme here, but just some things that Elon touched on during the call that I want to mention. One was that the factory will be the product, and JB talked about this as well, that the real thing that Tesla's doing isn't the cars themselves. Like, yes, those are beautiful and they're fantastic and all that, but the factory, the design of the Gigafactory, and the advancements in manufacturing are the things that will be their competitive advantage long into the future. And Elon gave an example of the Model T, the actual car, the original Ford Model T, that the car itself wasn't the thing. I mean, a lot of people look at that as an amazing feat, but really the assembly line and what they were able to do in the factory was the achievement. And so he kind of looks at it similarly with the Gigafactory. And I think that's interesting because the Gigafactory has so many applications that it could be for, right? Cars is one, but home batteries is obviously another. I mean, there's so many applications, so many things in our world that can be kind of transitioned over to battery technology. And with the Gigafactory, with that being the main focus, I think that will really propel them into kind of probably one of the world's largest energy companies down the road. So there you go. Another interesting bit of this was that John McNeil, who's the head of sales, is leaving, and sales and service will now report directly to Elon, and there is no intent of searching for a replacement. That confuses the hell out of me because Elon obviously already has more than he can handle on his plate, although he's a pretty amazing guy and is able to do a lot. There is a limit to human capacity, and so I'm really surprised by this. I'm not quite sure why they wouldn't find someone else. But anyways, wishing John McNeil the best of luck in his future endeavors. So there you have it. Now I have one more update to my video on Friday. And if you guys didn't see this, go check it out. Yeah, okay, 1,000 likes, about 300 dislikes. That's lower than normal. I knew this was going to be a controversial video. What the video was about was me after having my Model 3 for a month and having a Model S for 2 years, basically advocating for buying a Model S over a Model 3. You'll get it, obviously, a lot faster, and it's a better car. It's better in many ways. In fact, Tesla also states this. So there's really, I'm surprised that was very controversial, but a lot of people really seem to take offense to that. But maybe they have their little fiefdom or whatever, their little belief system, and I'm encroaching on it. But from personal experience, from firsthand knowledge, I can tell you that the Model S is definitely a better car. Now, the big thing that I was talking to some friends about this. The thing that the addition or the addendum I want to make to those statements in the video was that if you could get a Model 3 for $35,000 or maybe $40,000 with autopilot, or even the $44,000, and compare that to an $80,000 Model S, I can completely understand why the Model 3 is a better choice for a lot of people, why that makes sense. My argument was basically that if I would rather pay $60,000 for a low-end used Model S versus a high-end Model 3. So that's the comparison there. If you go, so the addendum is, look, if you were to, if you can't, I was arguing that the price doesn't matter, but the price doesn't matter when you have the high-end Model 3 and the low-end Model S. So if you take the low-end Model 3, yeah, that's going to be quite a bit cheaper. And I think that I agree with that sentiment. If you're not interested in autopilot or premium features or long-range battery or basically any of the upgrades on the Model 3, and you want like the black aero rims, standard model, no dual motor, no white interior, none of that, and you literally get it for $35,000, which at this point you'll be missing out on most of the tax credit by doing so. So it'll be really close to $35,000. You won't get much of a federal tax credit here in the U.S. Then yeah, I agree. I think the price difference matters. But if you're adding any of those features and you're comparing it to a used Model S, I would take the used Model S every day of the week. I like it a lot. And in fact, I think I'm giving my Model 3 to my wife, and I'm going to start driving my Model S again. So not to say it's bad, but for somebody that's coming from an S, there is a lot to like about an S. And so that was the point of this video. I just wanted to add that for anybody that would watch it and was really upset or anything like that. Which I knew people would, because they're very they have their belief systems, and they're very strong about those. Couple more items, and we'll get over to Q&A. Thanks to everyone that came out to the Model 3 meetup in San Clemente this past Saturday. I had a blast sharing the car with you guys, except for the guy, the Bob Lutz fan that came out from GM or whatever, who wasn't really interested in having a conversation with us. But anyways, for everyone else out there, I'm glad you guys got to check it out. I hope it was helpful to you. And if you guys were didn't know about that, I intentionally didn't want to publicize it a lot. Follow me on Twitter, because that's where I post those little kind of things, right? I didn't want to create a big stir and have 100 people show up and have security come and all that, so I kept it pretty small. I only sent out one tweet about it, I believe. And so there you go. So thanks for everyone that came out, and also thanks to Rob and Brenda Mosher. Is that what I'm saying? Yeah, Mosher, sorry, for sending me the birthday card. Thanks, guys. If you guys want to send me stuff, you can check out my About page on my YouTube channel. And I don't know if the address is there. I have a P.O. box where you guys can send stuff. And so thanks, guys. I read that and I really appreciate it. My birthday was a couple weeks ago. So, and then also, holy cow, congratulations to my friend Kim and her husband for winning a P100D. So here you go, and I successfully jumped to the right spot. So last year there were the annual awards for the referral program, and they had a lot of different things, and one of them was the first person to 20 referrals in each region, North America being a region, got a free P100D of their choosing, Model S or X. Of course, you'd get the X, but anyways, they had a little video here. They're selling their Model X, and they're going to be, I think they're getting a long-range Model 3, and then they're going to hold out for the Model S or another Model X free from their from the program. So congrats, guys. I'm super stoked for you. And yeah, I mean, we're all in the same boat, and it's nice to see that Tesla's actually following up on some of these prizes, because believe it or not, the referral program, it's a fantastic thing, the referral program, but the communication has a lot to be desired. So many things that we're still just kind of completely in the dark about. So in any event, congratulations, Kim. And you definitely go check out their channel if you guys haven't heard of them. Now let's hop over to Q&A. And on YouTube, let me see what I can do. Yep, I'm going to leave it there. All right, so if you are in Crowdcast, please make sure to go check out the questions there. And I will hop over. I'm going to go full screen so the people on YouTube can just see the one. Okay, cool. What can I do with that? No. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Look at that. Okay, and the way this works, for those of you that don't know, and I'm actually just gonna cut off my camera for the guys on Crowdcast. So if you guys want, you'll have to see me on YouTube, but you'll still be able to hear me. So that way it doesn't create a weird kind of double effect. Okay, cool. So here we go. Let me just make sure everything looks good there. Yeah, let me bump it up just a little bit. Cool. And the way this works, guys, is that I'll click this button here, Start Answering, and then what will happen is it'll timestamp it. So if you guys are in Crowdcast now or later, you can go to the Ask a Question section and view my answer directly. You don't have to actually, skip around and find it. You can just jump straight to it. And I'll also usually share these out on social media with direct links back. So that's kind of the thing behind that. So there you have it. Let me see if I can do this over. In fact, you know what? I'm going to turn my camera on because it's not fair, because in the replay it won't be there. So there you have it. Dink to dink. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So first question from Walt. Walt asks, do you feel buying the upgraded interior and expanded battery mileage and the autopilot will greatly enhance the resale value or sellability of the car? I'm not sure about the second question there, but what you're getting at, I believe, is whether or not it makes sense to get those things in terms of resale. I don't think so. It certainly will. Like if you're buying a truck and you want the 4x4 version, well, yeah, that's going to be more expensive than the non. So I mean, it certainly will help, but in any event, it's not going to be something that I would personally buy just to have for resale. I think a lot of people are going to be interested in the car regardless of that. And I do know, I mean, lots of folks that really don't care about the premium interior, some people that are really overzealous about it. But the mileage is probably the big one. And so the autopilot can be added or later. So I wouldn't worry too much if you're really not interested in that. I personally wouldn't buy a Tesla without it nowadays, but hey, whatever. The extended mileage is the one I would absolutely buy because I think that will be a big differentiator here. Thanks for the question, Walt. Max asks, what do you know about the Model Y? I just shared that. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Devin asks, hey, Ben, I recently saw an article about a former GM employee that specializes in tearing down cars for fit and finish. He recently began work in the Model 3. My concern is he mentioned that in the event of an accident or fire and the rear passengers could not get out using the driver's side due to the emergency release. Yeah. Well, having a baby might be hard to get them out anyways, right? I don't think the baby is going to make their way out. Certainly my toddler couldn't do it anyways. So here's the deal. And I'm not sure. I mean, the official answer I heard on this is crazy. So here it is. In the front seats, the front doors have emergency release handles. That being manual, not electronic, right? Because if you're in an accident and there is the electronics in the car fail, which can happen, or if like the battery dies eventually, you can't get out in the back seat. There is no manual way to get out of the back seat. I've heard that the answer is to pull down the seat and crawl out through the trunk, which has a latch, but I mean, geez, that's kind of ridiculous. So yeah, the front seats do have them, but the back seats do not. They have the front seats have the manual ones and the back seats do not. Something that definitely is concerning. I don't know about the baby situation. Yeah, I bring my toddler in it and stuff. But yeah, it is kind of concerning, and I'm not sure if there's any kind of official answer on that yet. So it is true though, for sure. So yeah, thanks for the question, Devin. Carlo asks, being from Canada, our winters are pretty unpredictable, and I understand that the car is made of both aluminum and metal. I believe aluminum is a type of metal. I think you mean steel. I also have been told that the Model S and X don't need to be rust-proofed. Do you know what parts of the Model 3 are metal, and do you recommend rust-proofing? Well, it's not something I have any experience with, but I do recall Trevor at Model 3 Owners Club doing a breakdown of the components, because I think it was one of the help manuals or something of the car actually listed it out, and they had some diagrams in there. Or maybe it was the fire, thing where, where to cut and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, go check out Model 3 Owners Club. He lives in Toronto, and, I understand that it snows there, and this is an issue for him. So check that out. I can't really speak to it otherwise. Probably rust proofing makes sense. I have no clue how expensive that is, but, yeah, it's not 100% aluminum. So, yeah, there you go. Thanks for the question, Carla. Joey asks, I know the Model 3 battery indicator has rated miles on it, but is there a section to see suggested range based on driving and weather similar to the Model S? Well, and you take delivery this week. Hey, congrats. No, that section does not exist. It doesn't have any of the battery energy consumption charts and graphs and projections or anything in there. If you're using navigation, I believe it will take that into account, but it's not like the Model S and X where it shows you that. There's nothing in it, as of this morning when I drove mine, that shows that. So yeah, to come, I'm sure that it'll be there. And I believe it does include that in the navigation, but it doesn't show it to you. So yeah, something that I was pretty bummed on because, I'm a data guy and I want to see that stuff. Thanks for the question, Joey, and congrats. Michael asks, hi, Ben, please research on how many Tesla cars sold in the USA and project if they will hit 200,000 cars sold. Yeah, Q2, going with it, still going with it. Here's the deal. I believe, man, when was the last time I actually looked at this? Mid-December or late November, I think I looked at it, and they had 140,000 in the U.S. So you throw in a pretty solid 25,000 a quarter from the S and X alone. You add in a few thousand for the Model 3. Yeah, Q2. I would imagine that, so if you add in, so we'll be at like maybe 175,000, 180,000 by the end of Q1. Is rough guess based on the last time I looked at it. Go over to InsideEVs.com. They have the monthly scorecard, and they probably have a blog post on this. I'm not sure. I'm not going to do a video on it, but yeah, all signs still point to Q2 for them hitting the 200,000 mark. Now, some people speculate that that's why that they're planning on pushing the Model 3s to Canada, but I think they would have to stop S and X production, which doesn't seem like a smart thing to do. So if they can, man, if they could stretch it out and hit it first thing Q3, that would be an amazing feat. I don't see them doing it though. So Q2 is still kind of where it's landing on. And this is how these things work, right? We do this projection a year and a half ago, and it's like wildly all over the place. Then as we get closer and closer and closer, that the error bars get smaller and smaller. And right now everything is pointing to Q2. So there you go. Thanks for the question, Michael. Vic asks, why do you think the all-wheel drive for Canada got bumped ahead of the all-wheel drive in the USA? Well, yeah, that was it right there. I mean, in theory, it's so that, the tax credit can get extended. But maybe it's just because they want to start selling them sooner so that way they can have a higher profit. In any event, we're all speculating. But yeah, that's a guess. Carlo asks, Ben, I understand the Tesla app has recently been updated. Oh, has the Model 3 software been updated as well? No, no updates to the Model 3 stuff. Let me just see right now, actually. I'll just check. I want summon and that's the one thing that because I don't have it in my Model S, I really want to be able to summon my Model 3. I think that's a cool, even though it's just kind of like a dumb party trick, like I won't really use it. It's still pretty cool. Yeah, I've had all kinds of software updates for my Model 3 recently. Yeah, let me see. Controls. No heated steering wheel. Yeah, nothing new. Nothing looks new to me on the app. I'm just checking right now. So, yeah, obviously more to come. Thanks for the question. Jacob asks about any Tesla's ability to avoid accident if the car stops by itself because something's happening in front. Will it start driving a little bit forward again to prevent an accident? I don't think so. I don't think it's that smart. You're talking about the actually no. Someone told me that if you're stopped and it detects somebody's going to rear end you, it will actually come forward. I've not seen that. I know Marquez talked about it in a video, an interview he recently did with on the H3 podcast, but I've not seen it. Yeah, in theory, it's supposed to do that. Yeah, I have a lot less faith in autopilot than a lot of other people. But that said, I don't have the most amount of experience with it either. Yeah, interesting question. I think as time goes on, these features will roll out and it'll be, but it's supposed to do it, but we'll see. Thanks for the question, Jacob. Let's see here. Carlos asks, I just read this article. Cool. According to the study by Navigant, Tesla is currently dead last in self-driving race. Yeah. Yeah. Someone brought this up. I don't know. self-driving is not the thing that I'm most excited about with Teslas. I still very, very rarely use autopilot. I think driver assisted are there. Yeah, they could be right. They could be wrong. Who cares? Not something I'm concerned with. Thanks for the question, Carlos. Max asks, does the 0 to 60 of the Model 3 feel like 75D or 100D? Definitely not the 100D. Yeah, it's pretty powerful. Definitely not close to 100D a Model S. I'm going to go race my buddy. There's actually a place here in San Diego that does it. I think it's every Friday. But we need race helmets, so we need to go get those. Yeah, the Model 3 is quick. But that quickness very quickly dies out. I'm very curious to see the performance version of the Model 3, which I'll be getting later this year, or hopefully later this year. So thanks for the question, Max. It's fast. You don't have to worry about it. But yeah, compared to a Model S, definitely not as fast. Trevor asks, whatever happened to the Trans-American self-driving Tesla by the end of 2017? Yeah, there you go. So hopefully you caught it earlier, and on the earnings call I talked about it. Yeah, hoping to do it, but it wasn't a priority. Probably still isn't a priority, honestly. I don't see why it would be a priority in my view, but hey. Jorge asks, since the Model 3 and Semi are going to share the same powertrain, do you think the drive units will be relatively cheap to do mass production? Also, if you could talk about repair pricing throughout the models as the info becomes available. Yeah, so repair pricing is interesting. I mean, everything is pretty much still under warranty, well, except for the parts on the older ones. But yeah, so it's interesting. I do think the Semi is going to be a huge hit and be an incredibly profitable unit model for them. The question is where they can manufacture it, because there's absolutely no way they can do it in Fremont unless they're hiding something that we don't know about. But when I visited, and everything Elon has said, they need a new place to do it. So that would be the big question. And then if they're able to successfully use the model and the kind of factory as a product blueprint that they've been developing, then hopefully they'll be able to spin up new factories quickly, and that will be kind of the major success of them. So yeah, we'll see. Lots to come, and of course, repair pricing and stuff, I'll talk about it when it makes sense. So thanks for the question, Jorge. Andre asks, do we have any info about the Model 3 towing capability? And promised. Yeah, nothing for the gift, I've heard, and it doesn't have a tow rack or anything like that, so no. 0, I guess. Thanks for the question. I'm going to run through these kind of quick. We still have a lot of them left, I think. Ben, I see my updated Model 3 delivery estimate. Yep, delayed by 3 months, and a dual version will be available before the base version. Yeah, talked about it already. Thanks for the question, Jim. Are any rumors, updates on when Teslas will get revamped and improved mapping and routing? Man, I am dying for that because it sucks. It's bad. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I try to navigate somewhere. It takes forever to do it, and then it gives me some really, really bizarre route that doesn't make any sense. Fire open Waze, and it has like the quickest, fastest way by far. So yeah, I don't know. I hope so soon. I know Elon tweeted about it. But there's nothing that I've actually seen. So, hey Devin, what should be a fair price after the depreciation of an EV? I don't know. That's a loaded question. Yeah, I can't speak to that. I don't know. What should be a fair price? It really, really depends on a lot of things. So I would say check out autolist.com. They've actually done some studies on this. Thanks for the question. Franz asked, the possibility of being trapped in the backseat of the Model 3 due to no way open to the rear doors. The power left was a turnoff for my wife. Don't blame her. If having children in the back car seats, how can an adult alongside get out in a hurry? Well, if you can open it from the outside, I mean, that's one thing. But I'm not sure about from the inside. Yeah, no, I agree. That was something I learned after the fact, and it was like, ooh. That's kind of interesting, and just to be clear, I mean, the reason I got my Model 3 is to share that experience with you guys. We wanted to go all electric. Me and my wife developed this thing a couple years ago called our family sustainability plan, and a big part of that was having all electric cars, and then solar, and then home batteries. I'm waiting on my home battery. It should be here this March. Other than that, we're there. So we have all electric cars, solar, and now we're just waiting on the home battery. So for us, that was the thing. Likely what we'll end up doing, again, because this is now my full-time job is making videos and sharing those experiences with you, you know, we'll get another Model 3, the performance one when it comes out. We'll get a Model Y, et cetera, et cetera. But for the ones we're actually going to keep, this could be a deal breaker for me as well, because that's pretty scary. Obviously, it's not something that, you know, I don't want to live my life in fear, but this seems like something that it could have been easy to add, but for whatever reason it wasn't. So yeah, and with my 2.5-year-old, I can't really like teach him how to, you know, grab a center punch and break the window or something. It doesn't make sense. So I agree. I agree. It's definitely confusing why that is the way it is. Carlos asks, I've been waiting on the base Model 3. Waiting time, second quarter. Yeah. I don't. Is there a question here? It's pretty good for me that they're holding the production base model. I understand. Yeah, it's all about. Nope, that is the business practice. Yeah, as far as the tax credit goes, you're definitely not going to get the full credit. Anybody that's getting the base Model 3 will not get the full credit, just flat out. That's just how it is. You have to buy the more expensive one first, and that's exactly how they did the Model S and Model X. So I don't think it's any surprise. I think maybe a lot of people that are unfamiliar with Tesla that you know, this is their first kind of introduction to them, as you're pointing out, are upset about it. But really, I mean, I guess it's just how it is. Which is why, again, for somebody that's getting a free Roadster, I predict I'll get it 5 years after, you know, after they start making them. Because why are you going to give the guys that didn't pay $1 for it first, right? It doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, it's a bummer, but, you know, hey, that's economics. That's how it works. Wendell asks, truly appreciate all the info you provide us for EVs. You're welcome. Disappointed in the delay. Yep, understandable. Which is better, opening the windows and increasing the drag on the car, or running the air conditioner? Huh, that's a really good question. Well, the air conditioner doesn't use the motor, so it just uses some of the... it uses a different motor essentially, and I don't even think it uses the car battery. I think it uses the 12-volt battery. Yeah, I would have to go that. Well, obviously, the AC shouldn't affect the drag on the car at all. But yeah, I would go in terms of efficiency. I would go running the AC with the windows closed. Would probably. But again, I'm not an engineer in that sense. So yeah, thanks for the support, and thanks for the question. Let me just double check if there's any down here with, okay, we got like 100 questions coming in. All right, we're going to limit it to just about 3 more questions here. Jeremiah asks, supply chain issues seem to be a huge problem for Tesla. I don't think it's a supply chain. It's the battery modules at the Gigafactory. The Model X was a manufacturing nightmare, yep. Why aren't there weekly updates? Yeah, I don't think it's... There were some issues for suppliers, but I believe that they've solved those. Really, the main thing was the battery assembly at the Gigafactory, according to Elon from today's statement. Why? I don't know. Because each car is different, and you know, they're trying to do something that's not been done before. It'd be one thing if they just, you know, copied the template from before, but you know, each time they do this, they're trying to push the limits and make something even better. I mean, even the Model Y, if you're unfamiliar, has something called a flex circuit, which should significantly reduce the amount of wiring needed in the car, which again could make it simpler to manufacture. I mean, there's so many things. Every time they do something, they're trying to, like, you know, push it to the next level instead of just kind of doing what they did before. So, I mean, you have to kind of respect that. You know, the Model X and Model 3 are completely different things in terms of the issues they had. The Model 3 they'll figure out for sure, but it's just a little bit later, and it has to do with the automation of the battery assembly, which Elon said that they felt that they knew how to do, but they were a little bit complacent in. So, yeah, thanks for the question, Jeremiah. It's a good one. If the Model S and Model X are supposed to be Tesla's flagship cars, why does the Model 3 user interface have so many features that the flagships do not? I don't know what you're talking about. The Model 3 user interface is garbage right now compared to the S and the X. It'll make it better. Nameable trip meters, speed adjustable volume. Yeah, no. The UI on the 3 is garbage compared to the S and the X. Sorry, I completely disagree. Tyler asks, hey Tyler, your estimate was 15 years on Elon time. Estimate 3 to 6 months. Yeah, full self-driving. Yeah. No, definitely not revising that. Here's like I've sat with and talked to several engineers that work on self-driving for major major auto manufacturers. They all agree level 5 autonomy is, 15 years out at best. And the thing is like we're dealing with. I think people want to take something like the internet and how quickly those things developed and assume that the same thing will happen here. But the problem is that we're dealing with the physical world, and it is completely unreliable. In fact, one of the teams that I sat with was from Mercedes, and they had this thing called the Intelligent World Drive. And what they did is they actually took their S-Class Mercedes, which is designed to be fully autonomous, and they took it to all the different continents. And they showed me some of the photos and some of the data they collected. It is insane how many different types of roads and things that you'll have to interpret. Like, you can't even fathom it. And then there's stuff like in China, you may encounter pedestrians on the freeway. And instead of stopping for a pedestrian, you swerve around them. So it's really, really, the mountain to climb to get to level 5 autonomy is bigger than I think anyone is reporting. So that is why I am firm on that 15 years. I mean, I think 15 years is even maybe a little aggressive. I think it may be longer before we truly see complete autonomy. Now, what we will see is in the meantime is things where we have known routes and good conditions where we see full autonomy in those specific use cases, right? So a good example is what Waymo is doing in Arizona. We are dealing with, first off, in Arizona, the roads are fantastic. They're well maintained, and it's going on specific routes or in specific areas to be exact. So it's not like this car is going off road and figuring something out. Like, I just got back from Mexico. There's not even road signs in a lot of the places I'm going to. How the hell is the car going to know where to go? It doesn't even have a clue on what it's doing. Kind of like what Elon alluded to with the coast-to-coast drive, where they could have done it if they basically programmed in the specific route and everything that they knew they were going to encounter, but they didn't want to do that. So in my estimate, we are miles and miles away from true full autonomy, and by that I mean like no steering wheel in the car. Now, I know GM has kind of doing a funny stunt with the Bolt on that, but what I'm talking about is you can realistically, and it's commonplace for us to just be like, why are people even allowed to drive? Like when is that question going to enter the public discussion, right? And I think that is so far out. In the meantime, things like airport trams or things where it's a known route and the conditions are good, easy. We can do that today. That does happen today, but that's gonna become very, very prevalent, I think. The things like I just hit a button and a car shows up and I hop in and it takes me out camping. Yeah, that's so far out, man. I'm happy to be wrong. Elon is definitely somebody that pushes the limits, and I wish them all the best. Don't see it happening at all because there are just so many factors that are not even close to being solved yet. So, not to mention if they're doing it 100% with cameras instead of things like LiDAR, which Elon had a very good point about in the earnings call. They won't be able to see through things like fog and rain and snow and stuff like that without those sensors. So, yeah, there's so much to do here. I love where we're headed. I'm happy for it to be slow progress. And I think people are just overemphasizing it because of maybe the media or, they assume it's similar to how like the internet developed, which the digital world is completely different than the physical world. So. Sorry for the tangent there. Hopefully that. I'm sorry. You actually did have a question. Yeah, my bad. Would that make you rethink recommending holding off on getting it at purchase? Said no. I certainly won't have the car I have now by the time it's ready. So I wouldn't worry about it. I would not purchase full self-driving at all. I think you're basically hedging a bet. And you're spending, giving them $3,000 to play with. I think you could do a lot better with that money on your own. Thanks for the question, Tyler. All right, guys, last one. Tesla Model 3 gets official EPA rating of 310. What's the real rating after your use? You know, I haven't tested it fully. I am going to do a test like that to see, but there are so many factors here. I believe that the EPA actually rated it higher than 310, and 310 is what Tesla reports. And inside of the API, it actually has some different things. There's like the ideal range, the rated range, and then your actual range. And that's how we measure efficiency. So, yeah, stay tuned because I'm going to be reporting on that very soon. Okay, guys, thanks for joining me today on the broadcast. Excuse me, live. If you didn't get to answer your question, I apologize. I will be doing this again next week, so you can get on the email list and make sure to get your question in early, ask for votes, get people on there so that we make sure to cover it. Lastly, don't forget, when you free the data, your mind will follow. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you back here next time. Cheers.